Every Palestinian had this signal in their heart, and after October 7th, some sort of light or beam pinged us all and said it's time.
Time for what?
My biggest concern is this previous generation, we're losing them. Are we grabbing their stories? Are we understanding their narratives? Because we need to grab that knowledge to continue the fight.
Are you fearful for the future of America?
The clients who would ask me to give talks, they would say, hey, you know what, don't use Palestine. I can't say where I'm from or what I am. You know, we're more comfortable with you just talking about you being Muslim. Or they would say, don't use the word genocide.
So you're not optimistic?
If the world woke up, and I'm going to get criticized for this probably, the Egyptian people would be knocking down whatever wall or barrier there is into it.
Before we start this episode, I want you guys to know something. This episode with Dr. Ed was recorded a couple weeks ago. The ceasefire wasn't announced yet. The genocide was still happening. And if you ask me, in my opinion, it probably still is whenever you're listening to this. Because if I learned one thing is that this issue, this problem, the plight of the Palestinians is something that never stopped. And you'll understand more in this episode. I had already recorded an intro before this, after the episode with Dr. Ed, but I'm not going to put that in. I feel like this is more important to say. The plight of the Palestinians has been an ongoing thing for a very long time. Since we were little kids, we heard about our neighbors that were always struggling. They were occupied. They get killed and their lands get taken away from them, and there was nothing to do about it. And then this thing happened 2 years ago, and then the world, in my opinion, his eyes opened up and they were like, whoa, what's happening there? And then you saw these massive campaigns that started happening all over the world, protests in the streets all over the world, screaming for a free Palestine and begging and urging to stop the genocide that was happening. And now they did announce a ceasefire. Things might go back semi-normal. And a lot of people that got introduced to this fairly new are going to forget. And they're just going to keep going with their lives. And this phase of 2 years is just going to be a phase for them. But if you want to learn anything about history, is that a ceasefire doesn't mean anything. In my opinion, a ceasefire is only a way to say that, hey, we're going to continue these attacks in an unofficial way. No, wait, we signed the ceasefire agreement, but we're still going to kill, we're still going to take land, and we're still trying to create this greater Israel. And this is where you and I come to play. During this conversation with Dr. Ed, we discuss these things. We discuss the importance of using your voice to pierce through all the power and all the corruption and all the influence and the money and the control that they think they have. If we can learn anything, and if we can take away any positives from the past 2 years, although it's very difficult to do so, it's that we understand how important our voice is in the grand scheme of things. We understand that a true voice, a truthful voice that is there for the right reasons, that's trying to communicate the Palestinian issue to the world, will pierce through every PR stunt they throw, every lie that they throw. This is not a phase. This is not like a 2-year thing. And okay, we're done with this. Check box. Okay, we stood up for Palestine for 2 years. Check. What's the next thing? If you're familiar with the Middle East at all and with the history of the Middle East at all, you understand that they do not stop. They will continue stealing land. They will continue killing innocent lives. That's what they do best. So all I'm asking from you is this. Listen to this episode. Take it in very deeply. A lot of the conversation that we had is very relevant, even though they announced a ceasefire. Dr. Ed has created this channel. He created a podcast that communicates the plight of the Palestinians in a beautiful way. And you should check it out. It's called Sumud Podcast. Of course, it's linked in the description, everything. You should subscribe. But you should hear what he has to say. The information that Dr. Ed provides is a very unique perspective from a person in this media space that is using his voice and his platform to bring this to light. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm sorry for my voice. I'm a little sick during recording this. Subscribe to the podcast if you still haven't yet. If you're new here, welcome to Not From Here. Subscribe, like this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. And with that being said, let's get this show started.
Welcome aboard Middle East Airlines.
والمتوجهة إلى
طيران الشرق الأوسط يرحب
مدينة القدس العربية.
Ed, welcome to Not From Here.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Ed, the way we start the show off usually is I ask the guests to introduce themselves, but the way that I want you to introduce yourself isn't a podcaster or a storyteller or how people would typically know you. It's when you look in the mirror, who is that person? you just finished recording, had a long day, you went home changing your clothes, you're looking yourself in the mirror. Who is that guy?
Assuming I get over the shine and the reflection. Honestly, everybody's answer should be one thing: Palestinian. Period.
That's it.
That's it. That's the end game. That's the bottom line. That's the focus. Palestinian. That's all I see. And that's all we should all be seeing.
How has that evolved over the years?
I don't think many people knew about the Palestinian struggle. I don't think they really understood it. I think they viewed this as an abstract thing on the other side of the world, and they didn't really appreciate it. And they only got one narrative, one side. But now they're realizing, you know what? I think I've seen this before. I've read about this in history books, and it's happening again, but it's just happening to a different people. So I think people are starting to understand it and appreciate it. Yeah.
As a Palestinian yourself, though, has that definition changed over the years, especially what happened in the past two?
Has the definition of being a Palestinian changed?
Yes. Has your outlook on it changed? Because something snapped after October 7th 2 years ago in everyone's mind. But as a Palestinian yourself, does something also snap?
Yeah, so the way I view it is after October 7th, I've written about this too, I feel like every Palestinian had this sort of signal in their heart. And after October 7th, some sort of light or beam or signal, whatever fancy phrase you want to use, basically pinged us all and said it's time. And I believe that every Palestinian within the diaspora woke up, their eyes kind of, got really big and like, okay, game time. This is what our grandparents wanted from us. This is what our great-grandparents wanted from us. For me, this is what my parents wanted from us. It's game time. What are we waiting for?
So when Palestinians say it's time for what?
To get our land back. That's it.
Yeah. How do you, so one thing that I understand.
Well, let's be specific though, to free our people and get our land back, right? And to create a Palestine that is ours, what we remembered it to be, to get people to have their right of return, right? To be connected to their families again. But under the name Palestine, nothing else.
Yeah. How do we do that collectively? Because it's not just the matter of fact that this is a Palestinian problem. I think we can agree that it superseded that.
Yep.
How do we all work on that? And what are the main aspects, in your opinion, that we have to tackle to reach that goal?
Yeah. Read. So when I first started the podcast, people didn't know who Edward Said was. How do you not know who Edward Said is, right? I mean, you can't be Palestinian. I mean, you can, but it's unfortunate. There are people who just don't know the figures of the past to have really influenced who we are. So go read, go understand. When you're debating or somebody's throwing out, certain parts of conversations, and they basically start the timeline whenever they want, at whatever point they want, how will you know if that's right or wrong if you're not reading, if you're not doing your homework, if you're not asking questions? My biggest concern, if you're interested, is, we have this previous generation, they're going to be dying off. We're losing them, right? Are we grabbing their stories? Are we understanding their narratives? Because we need to grab that knowledge to continue the fight.
But just on that note, for someone that's listening that doesn't know who Edward Said is, how can you best introduce him?
How can I introduce Edward Said? So he had a book called Orientalism, and this was, you won't understand Islamophobia until you understand that. You want to understand anti-Palestinian racism or anti-Palestinianism, whatever you want to call it, if you don't understand that. He really introduced, I would say it this way, he opened our eyes to the way the West really, the way they were depicting us, the way they were viewing us as barbaric, as uncivilized. And he showed that through whether media, through arts, through books, how people sort of created their own history, if you will. And he exposed it all. So if you're really going to start, even if, let's just say if you're in DE&I, I would start with that book before any other book. That's my opinion. Yeah.
And from the podcast, Sumud has grown tremendously. As a Palestinian before starting the podcast and then after, what are the main takeaways that you can share from what you've learned and what you've uncovered on the podcast?
That I'm still learning. See, you know, the audience of the podcast is me as well, because I want to be able to learn and have conversations. And the way I could do that is by having the podcast, by asking these questions, by getting the different perspectives, so I can understand the full story of my people, right? So conversation and dialogue has really been the main thing for me.
Yeah, and I think during this war, the storytelling front has been very powerful.
Yeah.
In a time where after October 7th, the emotions were very high, especially with all the scenes coming out of Gaza.
Okay, which October 7th are you talking about?
I'm talking about 2 years ago.
How many October 7ths? I just want to,
Yeah.
how many October 7ths were there before October 7th?
Too many.
Too many, right?
Too many October 7ths.
Right.
But I'm talking about 2 years ago, October 7th, when the world kind of really started saying, wait, this is not normal. What happened?
I don't know if that's the case, though.
Okay.
Right? Is there a genocide right now?
Yeah.
The world hasn't figured anything out.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years. So using that as a time point or a stamp, I just don't agree with it, right? Because if the genocide is still going on, if our people are still not free, why is that date so important? Actually, I think to an extent we're feeding into that narrative of October 7th, do you condemn Hamas or whatever it may be. All that out the window.
You know what's interesting is growing up in Lebanon, since we were kids, there would be Palestinian protests all over, and we would attend. And it was kind of a thing that, like you said, how many October 7th there's been. I've been in Palestinian protests and seen Palestinian protests since we were kids growing up. So when this stuff was happening and people were marching towards us for the first time, I was like, okay, cool. But like you said, this is not the first time these things have been happening, you know? And it is disheartening in a way. We get desensitized to numbers. And it kind of goes down to, okay, what's the number today? What was the number yesterday? These are people.
That's why storytelling is so important. What you're doing is so important. You're storytelling, right?
Yeah. These are people with stories. So when we say how many times has it happened, okay, if someone says 25 times, for example, okay, but what does 25 times mean? How many stories were there in those 25 times that this has happened? You're talking about families that don't exist anymore. You know, like these are not normal phrases that now they're thrown around as normal because we've gotten too numb. But this is not normal.
It's not.
Has your family, on a personal level, do they look at this any differently than they looked at it before?
That's a good question. I think so. I think that there are many, not just my family, within the community who, you know, we were brainwashed. Oh, you can't say anything about Israel, or you can't mention this, or you're going to be labeled anti-Semitic, or you're going to be labeled terrorist, or whatever it may be. Honestly, I think the majority of my family and the community are saying, you know what, screw that. Look what you're doing over here. I'm speaking up. I mean, I have some relatives that are putting signs in their yard, right? Free Palestine. That would never have happened before.
Really?
So I think it did, when I mentioned that again, that sort of signal that we got, it really did unlock this courage that was always within us. And that's the thing with Palestinians. We have that courage within us. And it's just been waiting to come out, and here it is.
Do you think that signal was as a catalyst for you to start Sumud?
Oh, absolutely. Well, so for Sumud, the podcast, so I would give talks around DE&I. I wrote a book about religious inclusion in the workplace. And the clients who would ask me to give talks post-October 7th, because we have to use that date apparently. So post-October 7th, right? They would say, hey, you know what? Don't use Palestine. But wait a minute, this is a DE&I thing, diversity, equity, inclusion. Well, I can't say where I'm from or what I am. You know, we're more comfortable with you just talking about you being Muslim. So they're more comfortable with Islamophobia. You can imagine that than anti-Palestinian racism. Or they would say, don't use the word genocide. So as time progressed, I would either lose clients, lose relationships, or just refuse to do these talks or these trainings or whatever it may be. And then at some point, I told one client, honestly, I don't know if I can curse here, I said, F you, I'm going to do my own thing. And I did it. and I'm gonna make sure you're gonna hear my story one way or another. Whatever it takes, you're gonna hear my story, or my people's story, I should say.
It's so weird that the hiccup is the word Palestine.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, or the word genocide. And I don't know if you saw this in the past few days. There was a reporter asking Trump about the genocide that's happening. And here's where terminology really bothers me, and how it's spread out in the news is that he said, yeah, but don't you think what happened on October 7th was a genocide? And it's like, wait. Now they're trying to conflict the terms and water it down to, any act of aggression now, we're going to throw the word genocide to minimize what's really happening in Gaza.
Yeah. Isn't that sad? I look at
like
him,
what the media...
idiot. They're idiots. I mean, there's nothing, they're complete idiots. They're soulless. They're only focusing on their pockets. They don't really care. They don't even understand what genocide means. They don't even understand. I mean, come on. Like, Trump doesn't even know international law, I'm sure. I think he's just saying whatever he thinks he needs to say. So, I mean, I just dismiss that. And I understand he's the president and he has a lot of power and obviously he can do a lot of things. But at the end of the day, there's no intellectual capital within him, if you will. He's just saying stuff to make sure he gets more money, that he gets wealthier and more prominent. I mean, how many different things has he done with his name on it, or his logo, or his face, or whatever it is? So I just dismiss all of that.
Okay. And when it comes to storytelling specifically, I realized this, and I kind of want your take on it. There's a storytelling from the eyes of someone that's on the ground in Gaza, for example, and them telling the story. And I feel like a lot of times in media, that's categorized as biased or emotional, and they don't really take that into consideration. But what they do take into consideration is an analyst, for example, in Washington, that says, here numbers, blah, 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 this is what I think. And they're like, oh, no, he's the expert. Why do you think there's this contradiction? Although this guy's is the first-hand experience. Like, the person in Gaza can tell you exactly what's happening. And the analyst in Washington might not heard a gunshot his whole life.
Yeah. It's a planned contradiction. It's the media doing that on purpose. They're creating that contradiction. It's very clear if you watch the videos, right? If you watch on your Instagram or your Facebook what's happening, it's very clear what's happening. You can't debate it. You know, there are no games here. Actually, it's interesting now with social media and all the documentation, in 10, 15, 20 years, you can't say I didn't know, or you can't say, oh, I didn't say that. Well, actually, you did say that. Like, we're seeing that with former VP Harris, right? Where she's saying some things. And I mean, so I think that the media... And I think we're getting smart, though, just to be clear. I think we're understanding, especially with independent media, we're starting to change that. I think what you're doing, for example, too, with your podcast, you're starting to change that a little bit. That's why I think we need more of that. But the contradiction is planned. They know what they're doing. This is, I keep telling people, this is the playbook that's always been there. We were just too scared to call it out. And now we're calling it out. And now we're actually calling the plays, the next 5 plays. Okay, I was anti-Semitic tomorrow. What's next? I'm a terrorist. Okay, what's next, right? It kind of goes on and on. So that's sort of what we're dealing with.
And I think what you do really well is you bring both on. You bring the analyst, you bring the intellectual, and then you also bring the stories. And then I don't think it's either or. I think it's both. Yeah. And I think what media tries to portray, it's the analyst. They're the ones that are the experts.
Yeah, I do want to say, though, whatever their focus is or their domain, whether analyst, politician, whatever it is, they all have a story, right? And I think that it's our job, your job as well, to help make sure that we create a platform or a safe environment, if you will, to share that story and really tell their truth. If you really think about it, so watch any Palestinian on TV, and the first question is, do you condemn Hamas? And then they get interrupted a million times. Do you really see any other places where I can ask, hey, how are you doing today? And just shut up? Or tell me when you found out you were a Palestinian, and just shut up. And just let them tell their story, right? That's really the goal here. Yeah.
And I don't know if you thought about this too much, but I thought I'd pick your brain on it. There's obviously the mainstream media, and like you said, the tide kind of shifted to independent journalism, podcasting, and storytelling in that sense. And now what I keep thinking of is, what's their counterplay to that? Like now, at this point, they're going to realize that mainstream news is not working. And now they see the power of podcasting and storytelling, independent media is very evident now.
Yeah.
So what's the counterplay to that?
Yeah. Shadow banning, arresting us. I mean, it may sound ludicrous, but they could arrest us, harass us. They could hire people to come threaten us. I mean, it's going to get bad. I mean, they don't know how to stop. They really are getting worse and worse, and they're getting more dangerous across the board. So everything is out there now. I mean, you're seeing even physical harm, right? I mean, people could get attacked just walking down the street. So, I mean, we're at ArabCon, right?
Yeah.
Some of the speakers had to have security with them.
A lot of them, apparently.
Yeah. Why do they have to have security? Because they're saying free Palestine.
As simple as that.
Simple as that.
I was thinking more of a media play, though. Like, what kind of media play would they implement to make sure to stop the power of independent journalism?
I don't know what that media play would be, but I think the ultimate media play, if I may, is who purchased TikTok recently?
Larry, I forgot what his name was.
Yeah, whatever his name, right? I think for me personally, this could be wrong, but when I see independent media, Instagram to me is independent media to an extent. Your stories and what you're sharing, right? So shadow banning, blocking, discouraging. I was speaking to Rania Khalek and the great work that she's doing. She's independent media. All of a sudden, viewership or watches or whatever it may be are going down. Why would they be going down if they have 1 million plus subscribers? What's the game being played? So I think shadow banning may not be the right word per se, but they're definitely playing with the algorithm on the back end.
Yeah. And just purchasing, this is what I think is just, they're going to use the tons of money that they have is to buy, and they start buying. And
you know what's funny about that?
What is
We're
it?
still going to win.
Yeah. Because look, there's a depth that cuts through that purchase power that they have that we realize is reaching the right hearts.
It is reaching the right hearts, but they're forgetting now you have an army of Palestinians across the U.S. Lawyers, doctors, scientists. They're all stepping up now. There's a conference in Washington, D.C. in a few weeks. I don't know when this is going to air. In a few weeks, the Palestinian Bar Association. A bunch of Palestinian lawyers are going to fill up a whole hotel to talk about what are we going to do. How are we going to help our people? Again, we're going to win.
There's actually something psychological about having a warm drink when the temperature gets colder. It literally puts you in a better mood. It slows you down, makes you feel grounded, and gives you comfort in a way very little things do. And if we're talking about warm drinks, nobody does it the way Detroit Perk does. Their coffees, their lattes, their seasonal drinks, they just hit different. It's not just the temperature, it's the quality, it's the flavor, it's the whole vibe, and especially the consistency. You know that every single time you go to Detroit Perk, you're going to get a good product. It's not a hit or miss. The flavor you get is a flavor you've always been used to. Detroit Perk is where cozy season really starts. In the description of this episode, there's a link to download their app. You can order online, skip the wait lines, and get your drink on the go. Do you ever get that feeling that you're meant for something more? That you're meant to build something, that you're ready to build something real, not just clock in and out? Nelson Insurance Agency are looking for people just like that. They've been growing fast, helping families throughout Southeast Michigan. And now they're adding insurance agents to the team. You don't need decades of experience to be working at Nelson Insurance Agency. Just drive, people skills, and the hunger to grow. It's a chance to build a career with real purpose, real pay, and a team that actually invests in you. If that sounds like you, reach out to Nelson Insurance Agency today using the information in the description of this episode, because the next chapter of your career is waiting for you. And now, let's get back to the show. So you do feel optimistic about the future.
Define optimistic.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult because you got to think optimistic towards the future. There's still going to be bloodshed.
Yeah.
So that's not optimistic in a sense. But then, I don't know, it's this weird feeling that you're happy because the world is woke up, in a sense, where they're starting to do that. But at the same time, it's like, at what expense?
Yeah, I still, and I get it, and maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh here. I don't think the world has woken up.
Okay.
Again, the genocide is
So you're not optimistic?
If the world has woken up, there would be a real intervention in Gaza right now by the world. That hasn't happened. if it was really, if the world woke up, and I'm going to get criticized for this probably, the Egyptian people would be knocking down whatever wall or barrier there is and to get in there. The world has not woken up completely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think the TikTok videos and the Instagram videos and the story shares are not waking up per se?
I think it's getting there. Like I think it's educating people slowly, right? And I think it's encouraging people to learn or maybe dig deeper into the topic. But I'm just being repetitive. The genocide is still here.
Yeah.
Right. So what else do we have to do?
That's interesting. I think you're the first person I hear to actually say that bluntly like that.
Yeah.
Like if people have woken up, they would have taken action.
Yeah.
Mm.
Let me ask you. Let me just challenge you a little bit. Have we woken up? You and I are here in a comfortable studio, beautiful studio, by the way.
Thank you.
We're having a great conversation. What could we be doing more to end the genocide? Have we fully woken up?
But here's why I think that what you've done specifically has kind of woken up, because at the end of the day, it's multiple things at the same time. So you have your own part to play. And even though it's difficult to play your part in a comfortable studio in front of the camera, that takes a lot of work. And I'm sure that you put a lot of work and dedication into what you're doing. That's a lot of work, and maybe that's your part to play.
Yeah.
You know? And here's where my kind of mentality shifted a little bit. People be like, man, these people talk too much in front of the camera, like that's all they're doing. But no, when you see, and on the back end, I'm pretty sure you do see the results of people and what they're telling you. No, that's part of you waking up and helping other people to do the same and take action. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe you're not going to be the one that's going to fly to Egypt and try to bring down that.
But why aren't I that person? I mean, we have to ask ourselves, why aren't we doing that?
That's a very good question. And I think the answer to that is God has gifted you specifically with specific talents and a purpose. Everyone serves a very specific purpose. And you've channeled what God has given you into media and journalism, and you've proven how big of a platform you can build and how many lives you can change. And I think that is why you should be doing what you're doing.
I agree. I think the way I phrase it is we all have a superpower, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all have a talent, as you mentioned, and we have to leverage that. But what I want to be very careful of is for people to get too comfortable, to get complicit, right? And just kind of relax. And, you know, it's sort of analogous to running a marathon and slowing down in the middle of it because, I'm making my way there. No, you got to finish the whole thing. So this is a message, me saying this to you is a message to me. Job not done, like Kobe said.
Yeah.
Job is not done.
More.
Yeah, there's more.
Yeah.
You got to keep going. This is why we try to push out. And Ihab, the producer, we push out a new episode every week as much as possible to get as many stories out. And I still don't think that's enough. I think we need more, right?
What's the most difficult thing in finding people to tell the story? Like, you want to find someone that grasps the essence pretty well, the Palestinian cause or whatever the message of that episode is. Does it get difficult to find people that understand that message in the way you think it should be told to the world?
I don't know if I can say, so you said the way you think it should be told to the world.
Yes.
I don't know. That's not my role.
Okay.
My role is for you to tell me your story about what Palestine means to you in your own words. Because we all have our own definitions
Correct.
and feelings. So the hard part of my job, honestly, what I've learned more than anything is just building that trust and saying, say what you want to say. They're not used to that, right? Or I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm just going to, ask the questions I mentioned earlier and just be quiet, right? So I don't want to say, oh, well, this person is going to tell the Palestinian story. No, I want that person's kid to watch their mom or dad on screen and say, wow, they're talking about Palestine. Wow, they're talking about my village. It's their own story. I don't necessarily have to agree. Believe me, we've had people on the podcast, I haven't always agreed with, right? But it's their story. It's their truth. And I'm not going to stop them from sharing that.
One thing you mentioned that was interesting is the complicity. And something that I've realized is people maybe start something off with the intention of, oh, this is for the pro-Palestinian cause. And then somewhere along the line, they veer off into other intentions, whether it's, and I think that's easy to do in a society like America because it's such a capitalist society. But have you seen people use the Palestinian story for financial gain?
Absolutely. You see it all over the place.
Yeah. But as a Palestinian, how do you look at that? It's off of the blood of your family members and your people that this is happening.
So we can only fight so many battles.
Right.
There are going to be those individuals doing that. Our focus is to end the genocide and free our people. You're going to have those individuals. Human nature, right? People are going to try to cheat and steal and take advantage. We can call them out. We can use our words. We can point at them. We can say something about them on social media, which many people have done. We could do that part. But I want to be very careful with preserving our energy for more important things, right? I actually think that's a distraction. If we're focusing our attention on those individuals, they're winning. The Zionists are winning if you're focusing on that.
It's kind of like you put your gun towards yourself. You shoot yourself in the foot in a way. Yeah. What about people, like you said, everyone has their truth, but I don't know, some truths are, like from a Palestinian, it might be anti-Palestinian.
Yeah.
And where is that simply channeled by money, you think? Or what is that? The anti-Palestinian Palestinian.
Yeah. Is that scary? Just the fact that you have to use that phrase or put those words together, the anti-Palestinian Palestinian.
It doesn't make sense in a way.
It's crazy, right? It's a self-hating Palestinian sort of thing. So, money is a simple answer.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that's a simple answer. Yeah, money and they want power and they want influence. The reality is they're going to get sold at the end of the day. If they turn their backs on us, those individuals that they're capitulating to and getting money from, they're going to get stabbed in the back by those very individuals. They don't understand, that's going to happen to them. But I think the flip side of that really is to understand, were you brainwashed? Were you conditioned or coded to think this certain way? So for example, you're doing that podcast, but you're really making a difference. Well, let's try. Yeah, but it's not, let's try, right? So I think people are so accustomed to not fighting, right? And this is not just Palestinians, by the way. This is a lot of the Arab and Muslim community. They're so accustomed to that's not going to work, that they just stop. They're basically tricked into believing they have no power or authority to make change.
The thing is, the other Arabs that it doesn't give them a pass, but let's say someone just lives in the Gulf area and they are anti-Palestinian for whatever reason. There's things that you can come up with that be like, maybe he was brainwashed in that way, but a Palestinian who is you should know your story or your struggle more than anyone else.
There's a Palestinian out there. I'm not going to say his name. He looks like he was in the movie Get Out. If you don't know, you've seen his eyes. You know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to say his name. What is that? What happened to him? Is there something wrong with him? Is he mentally ill? Did he just give in to get money, to get power, to be cool? I am not a person to be able to analyze and study why people do that, obviously. But that's a good example, right? Why would this person, what did he see or experience, or who brainwashed him, or who tortured him, whatever you want to say, for him to have that perspective? It's crazy. He's actually tweeting, or whatever, is that still a thing, right? He's tweeting against the Palestinian cause. How does that even work?
Yeah. As a Palestinian,
it doesn't make sense.
Tell me about, I know the spotlight right now is, as it should be on the Palestinian issue. But you personally, how did you get into all this?
Yeah, at university, I was very active with the Students for Justice in Palestine. I was very active with the protests. I mean, we were doing protests back then. I mean, we're talking about the early 2000s. Right?
Yeah.
So very active, pushing it, and challenging to the narrative, being a part of these different talks and discussions. But what happens, right? All of a sudden, I don't want to end up on Canary Mission, right? Which is that website they put, they plaster everybody's names and information on. I wasn't ever worried about that. I wasn't even aware of Canary Mission at that time. But then you're like, oh, I got to go get a job. Oh, I have these responsibilities. And I think this is sort of, I'm not really sure how to phrase it, but this is sort of the trap that we fall into. That we get, we have to focus on ourselves and our success and the cars and all that stuff, right? Because, two-state solution, that's what they were always put, we have to have peace and all of that. And that's going to work out eventually, right? They keep promising it's going to work out. It hasn't worked out yet. So I think we start to go farther and farther away. And I think the bottom line is we got duped. All of us.
Plain and simple,
Plain and simple. They got us.
The two-state...
But what's cool about that?
What?
They don't have this generation.
This generation is going to be way more difficult to pierce through like that.
There's zero chance they're going to get pierced through. They're going to do the piercing.
Yeah. Is it just simply the access to information that this generation has that is going to make them bulletproof?
I think access to information is a big thing. It's difficult to say. I think the easy answer is to say they have greater access to information. They have TikTok or Instagram, and they can see these things live, and that's influencing them. There's something different, though, especially with the Palestinian generation, this generation of Palestinians. There's just something different. There's an extra edge. There's an extra I don't give a damn. There's an extra I don't care if I don't get that six-figure job or I don't get that car. It's just a different vibe that we were raised with, my generation specifically. Because, you had to graduate, you had to get a car, you got to get married. You had to have all of these things, and it pushes you further and further away from the Palestinian cause to an extent, right? So, again, we got duped. This generation, they're saying, I don't care about that stuff. You can have it. I don't want it. I just spoke to somebody today at ArabCon, and they told me everything they lost. Their money, their career, whatever it was, don't care.
If you're buying your first home, the process can feel overwhelming. From rates to loans to documents to approvals, it's a lot. But let's be real, the only thing that you're actually thinking about is looking for the home, finding it, decorating it, making it your own. But that's where Mortgage Connections come in. They handle that stress so you can focus on the excitement. They walk you through every step, explain everything, and make sure you know exactly what's happening. Because getting your first home shouldn't feel complicated. It should feel like the start of something new. And all the information to contact Mortgage Connections is in the description of this episode. Most people don't think about lawyers until something bad happens, but that's exactly when it's too late. The truth is, legal problems don't come knocking first. It could be a car accident, a traffic stop, it could be a business fallout, and suddenly you're in over your head. That's why having someone like Attorney Amir Macklin in your corner really matters. With over 20 years of experience, he has gone through all these different scenarios, and he has come on top time and time again for his clients. Knowing your rights isn't paranoia, it's protection. When you can't afford to lose, make the right call. All the information to contact Amir Macklin is in the description of this episode. Now let's get back to the show. It's odd, that part, because someone would listen to that and be like, is it worth it though? Like what kind of effect are you really doing to throw all that away?
If we keep asking that question, right? I mean, we can't ask like that's fresh. Like, let's try, right? Let's do it. Let's do something about it. But that frame of mind, honestly, was the problem with my generation to an extent, right? That's the frame of mind. This generation's not saying that.
Yeah. It's they say like, I'm just one person. What could I possibly do? No, let me enjoy the what life has to offer, and someone else will fight this fight. There's a lot of Palestinians out there.
Yeah.
But the two-state solution thing, it's interesting because it's such a polarizing conversation.
It's not polarizing. How is it polarizing?
It's as a debate, though. Some people say this is the way it has to be. And then other people were like, no, this is...
I think, I understand what you're saying. I just think people are making it polarizing. I'm going to play the other side here. Let's just simplify. Can it just be called Palestine? Why not just call it Palestine?
And keep everything the same?
Not everything the same. I think people have to get their lands back, obviously. And what was it before Israel did what they did? Jews, Muslims, Christians, whomever, right? They were living there. That's the way it should be. That should not change. So, when you say, here's my kind of phrasing here is if we say it's complicated, or if we say that, there's a lot of issues with debating this topic, I think you get trapped in debating the very topic without focusing on the root issue, right? And I think that's what I want to try to avoid.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So you don't want to debate if this is the right thing to do or not.
How do we debate anything when there's a genocide? How do we debate anything when blood is being spilled everywhere? How do we debate anything if it's very clear? There's nothing to debate. Land is being stolen. What are you debating? There's nothing to debate. Clearly, this is a pop-up entity called Israel, stealing land, murdering people, taking advantage of the situation, taking advantage of the world, and doing whatever they want to do. That's wrong. It's not their country. It's our country.
It's when you say it in plain, simple language like that, which it doesn't get more simple than this. A pop-up entity that's stealing land and murdering people on top of it.
What's fake falafel, right? Israeli falafel, whatever that is.
Or Israeli hummus.
Yeah.
It's almost, you almost sometimes doubt yourself, because you're like, this is so simple when you put it in these terms. Like, this is how it is, pre-1948 and after 1948. But even those simple terms are so sometimes difficult to make people understand, that you doubt yourself. Like, is it actually this complicated? Like, do I not?
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah. Am I not understanding this correctly?
They get in your head. They being the media, right? They get in your head. They do convolute the issue to where you start to question yourself. There is a form of gaslighting to an extent, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing. So that's why I encourage people, go back to the basics. Go back to the books. Go back to the Edward Said's, for example. Go back to the basics. Look in the mirror and remind yourself who you are and what you're all about, and go back to the basics. But to get stuck with these debates and these conversations when all of this is happening, it just doesn't make any sense.
The one thing that's important, I feel, is, like you said, the education piece, because it's easy to act out of emotion and feel like the world is crumbling, and then you have to do something, but educated, taking a deep breath and be like, let me learn more. I think it's something that we haven't done for a very long time, especially my generation. It's like just something we just listen on the news. What do they say? Who got killed, and what's the next thing? But no, why don't we go and read the literature and see what actually happened, And I don't want to say take decisions for ourselves, but come out with our own conclusions on things.
But here's better than reading is absolutely critical. But why don't you go ask the questions? You have grandmothers that are older than the pop-up entity of Israel, right? They're actually older than that. Why not ask them? Get their views, get their perspectives, hear their story, and that's the knowledge that you need.
But you see, this is what goes back to the question that I was asking earlier about the storyteller that was on the ground being, they were probably just biased or emotional or whatever, and then the analyst or the intellectual that's written the books, and then we take that more seriously than the actual story.
Yeah, we're conditioned to do that, though, right?
Yeah. When it comes to media, there's this thing that I think used to happen in Palestine before, that when it was only mainstream media, the journalist gets killed, the story ends there, ends at the journalist. Now the journalist gets killed and the story doesn't die anymore. And I think this is what poses a more eminent threat to the public image, is that you've seen how many journalists have been killed recently, but the story somehow doesn't differ.
What do you mean by differ?
Like, it doesn't, they can't twist the story anymore because they killed the journalist that's telling the story. And again, to the point of how the independent media work.
Right. But for me, again, I'm not a media expert. Let's be clear here, right? I'm not a journalist. I didn't go to school for any of this. But to me, independent media, again, is almost anybody who has the ability to record what's happening in front of them. Right? So if you think about it, there are so many people with devices that could just turn it on and show what's happening. To me, that's a form of media, right? It's independent media that's educating people. So the larger question is, can the mainstream media control individuals too? Right? If they can maybe try to limit what they see, maybe they mess with their internet, whatever it may be, but you can't control everybody. You really can't. So to me, independent media just goes beyond these entities. So you and I are independent media, right? We're organizations essentially. But there are people who are doing sort of what we're doing, but with their iPhone and just pointing it at the other person.
And you're just scared of controlling of that.
I think, how can they control all of that though, right? That's the question. Can they control all of that? But now, I don't know this exactly, but what did Netanyahu say the other day? What's his real name, by the way? I forgot his real name. Anyway, he said, if you're holding your iPhone, you have a piece of Israel in your hand to that extent. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It kind of sounded like a threat to an extent.
So, I mean, is it a threat like the shitty thing that happened in Lebanon with the Patriot attack? Is that like an indirect threat like that? No, it's a serious question.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, people are like, oh yeah, come on, that'll never happen. It could happen. I mean, we're seeing things happen all the time, even here. You just never know, right?
Yeah.
So I think that they're going to try as much as possible to control everybody's devices. And at some point, somebody's going to scream again, give me liberty or give me death. At some point in the United States, somebody's going to say that. Within America, somebody's going to say that. Because they can't control everybody. And they can't control the world.
Are you fearful for the future of America? Someone was saying the other day, I think at Airplane, that America was this place where you come and you actually get to say the things that you feel. And there was no really consequences to that. You were allowed to do that. And now we're just becoming a third world country in terms of the dictatorship and the monitoring of speech.
Yeah, I don't agree with the premise of that logic, because when could you ever criticize Israel in America and get away with it?
I think that's what's new about this.
Yeah,
is the
certainly.
mainstream criticism of Israel.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, in the past, when they said, well, America was this place, just going to your point, America was this place where you could say whatever you want. No. There's a great book, They Dare to Speak Out. I can't remember the author. I apologize. I think he's a former congressman. He talked about the Israeli lobby, and he got in a lot of trouble for his book, and I think his book may have gotten banned. I'm not 100% sure. But if this notion of freedom and freedom of speech truly existed, we could have criticized Israel consistently. We could have spoken up more consistently, but we couldn't. Why? Because we don't really truly have that freedom of speech. So, you know, for me, hope is you know, an amorphous term. What is hope exactly for America? I mean, I believe that the greater good will prevail. I believe that the people will unite and do what's right globally, as a global community, not just America, but as a global community.
Do you think they expected this to happen with independent journalism and people waking up to start criticizing Israel? Because it kind of seems like they didn't have a clue that this could happen ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, you need to get a media expert to answer that. But what I would assume is they thought that they could use it for their purpose. They didn't think we would use it for our purpose. So maybe they didn't really game plan this very well for themselves.
They're fumbling to explain things that shouldn't really, like, it's weird sometimes, like the things that they say and they do. It's like, do you guys think this was normal? It's just gonna, like, people are that stupid? This is what it feels like. It feels like they think people are that stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ed, what's one thing that we didn't talk about today that you think we should have?
One thing that we didn't talk about today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Are you happy with the work you're doing?
I think it's constant trying to get better, you know, especially in fields like this, because we're not experts. Mm-hmm. So you try to figure it out as you go.
Were you nervous today before the interview?
Yeah.
And you know why that's a good thing, right?
I think I told you that on the phone, that 100+ episodes, and before we hit record, there's this stomach turn.
Yeah. That means you care. That means you have humility. So that's a good thing. But do you think you're making the impact that you would want to be making with this podcast? I
think what people tell me from what they hear and the change that they personally do in their lives, that it is. And I always say each episode should help at least one person. And I would have done my job. And to be honest with you, after every episode, at least I get one person. Sometimes there are a lot more, but at least one person that says that they did change.
Yeah. And do you think you're getting the support from the community with your podcast?
Oh, in massive ways.
Good.
Massive ways.
Is that more because it's Dearborn or?
I don't think that it is Dearborn.
Okay.
I think it's more than that. Like, I'll give you an example. People will go out and meet, for example, someone that they find very interesting. Or this happened recently, a doctor from Gaza.
Okay.
And the first thing they will think of is, how can we connect him to Jafar? Or a CEO of a big halal food company. I did that in the morning. And it was yesterday, someone saw him in Dearborn, and they were like, wait, we can try to get you in contact with Jafar. And that shows me that the community itself really cares. Like, it's not just because it's Dearborn. Mm-hmm. There's a care element.
Good.
That these stories need to be told.
Good.
Yeah.
I hope you're saying that to yourself consistently, because the work that you are doing is very important and we need it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about the work that you're doing as well.
I appreciate that too.
Yeah. And that's it.
That's it.